Okay, I think we're ready.
Hello, my name is Angie Morthland. I'm the president of the Historical Society here in Mackinaw City. I'm thrilled to have us all here online and Zoom and then also in person. I'm excited to have our guest speaker today, Scott Davis. Couple announcements before we bring him up here to talk a little bit about the birding fun that we've been having here. For how many years have you been doing it here? How many years has it been? I would say, how long have,
Been counting?
yeah.
Oh, Ed Pike and others have been counting for 30 years.
30 years. Okay, I look forward to that. Couple things that are happening with the Historical Society. Heritage Village is getting cleaned up and getting ready to open up. We have our first school group the 19th of May. So we're getting ready for that. We also have our donation envelopes, but the best thing I want to talk about besides Scott being here is Marianne has sent out everybody their raffle tickets. So if you want to have a raffle ticket and you haven't gotten one from Marianne, please contact us. We will get one straight to you. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year, and it helps, of course, all the programming. And if you love this program, the next one is going to be the 8th of June. It will be Reed Nelson talking about the history of the Bible church that's right here in Mackinaw City. I do have a few board members in the audience. Marianne, our secretary's here. Frank, our vice president's here. Val, our treasurer's here. And Patrick, who, can you come up here for just a second, Patrick? And this is the reason why we have our program today. Patrick is on our board and is our resident bird person. And Patrick Smith, if you haven't met Patrick at Heritage Village or somewhere else, Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about how you met this group and why we have them here?
Well, I've retired from my job downstate. I worked at the zoo about 8 years ago. And when I stumbled across the hawk counters here, let's see, was it Keith George was the counter then, and I hung out with them, and they are very welcoming there. I knew I could identify a hawk if I was as close as that statue back there with binoculars. But when you look up in the sky and see hundreds at one time, and their silhouettes and they're gliding around, not holding still, it's very difficult. But they were very welcoming. I tried not to bother too many people, and I met the whole community over time since I've been here. And so since then, I bought another pair of binoculars, and then last year I bought a spot.
So like always the second stage,
yeah,
the addiction.
yeah. And so
it's not an affliction, it's an addiction.
Yeah,
I'm learning
my
how to
house.
use it, but they are very, very welcoming. And so if you're ever close from the beginning of March to the first week of June, they are now Calvin Brennan is the counter, and he is there rain or shine counting hawks. And usually there's hangers on like myself there, so you don't have to bother him if he's busy counting. And this is the busiest time of the year for them. So the Broadwing hawks come through thousands a day. So it's a beautiful time to be here.
Well, good, because when I went through Greece and I saw very few birds and I actually missed it. It was one of those things where I didn't see the birds because I'm so used to it up here.
Yeah. So,
without further ado, should we let Scott come up here?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much and enjoy the program.
Thank you very much, Angie.
You're welcome.
My name's Scott Davis. I am the executive director of the Mackinaw Straits Raptor Watch, have been for 4 or 5 years, and I am on my way out. We are going to have a new full-time executive director in the form of a young man named Nick Aliotto starting in August. Nick is the researcher who's been putting transmitters on red-tailed hawks and mapping their migrations. And I'll get into that in a minute. So Pat sort of touched on it, and it's, people will ask, why is the Raptor, why are you here? What are you doing? Why is this important? As it turns out, wrong one. As it turns out, the Straits of Mackinaw are one of the most important and busiest raptor migratory corridors in the upper Midwest and in fact, all of North America. The straits are the red-tailed hawk migratory route. Also, more golden eagles here than anywhere else in the eastern US. We will have in a season generally pushing 100,000 hawks and eagles crossing the straits. And so why? Why would they be doing that? Well, going backwards. A hummingbird will fly across the Gulf of Mexico. An eagle will not fly across Lake Erie. These big old raptors will not fly across a body of water where they can't see the other side. So as they're moving north to south, they hit this wall of water from Superior over here to Ontario and are looking for places to get across. And the straits right here turn out to be one of the most important crossing points out there. And Mackinaw City in the spring is especially important. And this is why. So in the spring, they're moving north. And I'll show you where they're breeding. But as they're headed this way, they hit the water and they're waiting. They don't want to cross on just any old day. They're looking for these warm updrafts on a sunny, when you're out here on a sunny April, late March day, when it's been cold and snowy, but it's all of a sudden gotten sunny and warm, look up. Because what you will see are these massive, what are called kettles. And what's happening is you get these warm updrafts coming off the land. Because remember, at this time of the year, the water is colder than the land. So as they move over the straits, they sink. They start to sink. And it takes a lot of energy for them to maintain the altitude and get across. So they're looking for these warm updrafts that'll take them to a certain height, and then they shoot across. And you could be looking up, and you will see, and I'll see if I can get this to play. I don't know if any of you have ever, yeah. This is a kettle, and these form right above Mackinaw City all the time. There will be hundreds, sometimes thousands of birds in these, all different species. They're all mixed, and they're all riding these updrafts. And then I'll look to you and I'll say, yeah, I was over at Walmart the other day and they didn't have any mayonnaise. And we'll look back up and they'll be gone. They'll hit that certain point in this whole process where they just decide it's time and they go. But this is one of the most, in my mind, one of the most sort of thrilling. This gives me goosebumps when I'm out there and I see these kettles forming. These birds have been doing this for thousands of years right here. Way before the ferries, Mackinac Island ever became Mackinac Island. These birds are up here doing this. So this is the perfect place for researchers to study these birds. They concentrate on the Mackinac side in the spring and on the St. Ignace side in the fall. There's thousands of birds. So if you want to study them, if you want to count them, if you want to know who, what, when, and where is moving, this is a perfect place to do it. So sometimes people don't know what raptors are. I talk to kids, they think of velociraptor, they think of dinosaurs, all that kind of stuff. You all, I don't think that way. Skip right through there. In terms of raptors, it's kind of a size thing. And over at Heritage Village, they have the eagle thing on the bench there. Eagles are your big ones. The bootios are gliding. These are your hawks, and I'll show you some pictures. Your red tails, your red shoulders, those kinds of things. The accipiters, you notice wing to tail here. They have a lot longer tail compared to these guys relative to the wingspan. The accipiters are hunting in the woods. These are your Cooper's hawks, your sharp shins. These are the guys that are raiding your bird feeders. And then you have your true falcons, your kestrels, your peregrines, that sort of thing. Eagles, we see a lot of eagles. As a kid, I used to never see them. Now I see them all the time. Here's a red tail. This is a buteo. This is a soaring hawk. These are the hawks that Nick has been working with. See the tags on the leg, and I'll show you his transmitters in a minute. It's another rough leg. These are beautiful birds. So we, in addition to the counts, we trap hawks back there behind Darrow's pit and band them. And some have monitors on them, and I'll show you why they have monitors on them. Stunning birds. This is a northern harrier. This is somewhere in between, really, soaring and an accipiter. They're smaller, gray ghost. These are beautiful birds, and we catch several of these every year. Now, these are your true accipiters. Here's a sharp shin. These are much smaller birds. You can tell that's Ed Pike's hand if you know Ed. These are much smaller birds. They hunt in the woods. They kind of move around, whereas your soaring birds are soaring over fields looking for mice and other kinds of stuff. And then you get into the sort of the true falcons. This is a kestrel. He's got a little helmet on here to kind of calm him down. The kestrels, peregrine falcons, that sort of thing, which you see sitting on phone lines around, and they're just super fast, kind of darting in and out hunters. So people will ask, why do raptors matter? I wish I'd taken this picture. This is so cool. That's a rabbit, that's a fox, that's the eagle. So it's a perfect, yeah. Hopefully he won't come out here. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Akuma Matata right here. They're at the top of the food chain. They're an indicator species. So everything that's happening in the food chain is eventually sort of manifested in the tops of the food chain. And the raptors are at the top. And so if their populations are declining, if weird things are happening to the raptors in northern Michigan, there's something else going on. There's something in the ecosystem, there's something in their habitat that is causing a problem that you need to pay attention to. And that's why we pay attention to them. So if you don't know the Raptor Watch, it was formed. Steve Baker and Ed Pike and Kathy Bricker and some folks you all probably know formed the Raptor Watch 30, 40 years ago informally. They've been out counting hawks for decades. In Ed Pike, I think in like early 2000s, got a grant, and it sort of grew from there. In 2014, the Raptor Watch became a 501c3, became a bona fide nonprofit, and it's been going on ever since. Last year, or 2024, we had the 10-year anniversary. So we count raptors in the spring and the fall as they're moving across here. I'll show you some of the counts. A couple of years ago, as the whole, and I'll say this among friends, as the whole Enbridge thing heated up, it became clear to us, we realized there is no database of water birds using the straits. The state doesn't collect that data. The state has no idea what's out there in terms of species or numbers. We thought it would be good to know that in case anything should ever happen and we need to get into any kind of restoration kind of mode. So many of you, Pat said he talked to Oliver. He's out there at the lighthouse, and on some days he's on the other side of the bridge over in St. Ignace. He's our water bird counter. He comes back every year. He's one of the best birders you will ever meet. So if you're interested in birding, go out, talk to Oliver, and he and his brother work nights at Walmart stocking shelves so they can bird all day. I mean, they've got the fever.
Yeah.
They've got the fever.
I think they're going to be working on the piping plover project.
Yeah, they're gonna work on
Yeah.
pipe and plover, and then they're gonna start working on another project I'm gonna talk to you about here in a minute.
You say the lighthouse, do you mean McGulpin?
Yeah, McGulpin Point. He's down there.
Yeah.
That little parking lot area. We band owls in the spring and the fall. You'd be amazed how many owls are moving through here. 2 years ago in St. Ignace, in 8 weeks, they banded 750 saw-whet owls.
Oh.
And it's not like we've set nets up to cover that whole Point LaBarbe. It's a relatively small net set. They were catching 60 and 70 owls a night. 750 owls. Now, this spring at Sheboygan State Park, 80. And I don't know exactly what was going on. Very few owls, really lousy weather, really unhappy banders that were stuck back there. Yeah, it was not great. We support raptor migration research from U of M, from University of Wisconsin, a couple different places. We do a little bit of outreach and education. This is an area that we're hoping to expand here moving forward. There is a raptor naturalist at the count site on the weekends. Calvin is a really good birder and an outstanding counter. And as Pat indicated, I'm not a birder. I'm bird adjacent. My wife is a birder. I am a lifelong conservationist. Worked for the Nature Conservancy. I retired from there after 23 years. Worked for the Forest Service. But the birds move too much. They won't sit still for me. I don't have the detailed mind that it takes to be a good birder. Calvin does. And as Pat indicated, he can look at a hawk 300 yards away into the sun and tell you what it is. And I called him on it early. I said, Calvin, I'm not buying it. I said, that's a red shoal. Oh, I don't believe it. And fly over and be exactly what he said. And so I started to press him after a while. Come on. Because most birders identify birds by their color, their plumage. When they're identifying these birds moving overhead, they're looking at flap rates, how they hold their wings, how they soar, whether they tilt, all kinds of clues and indicators that don't have anything to do with their plumage. That gets them pretty much zeroed in before they ever get close. So it's amazing how the wing tips and the wings themselves, are they flat, are they, concave, and, is it flap, flap, soar, flap, 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 soar? They all do it differently. And he can figure it out, but he's not the best face of the Raptor Watch. He is focused, he's counting, he's getting paid to count, and he lives in that world and doesn't often want to stop and talk to lots of other people because he'll miss them. So on the weekends, Sarah Redding, some of you may know Sarah, is out there as a raptor naturalist. She is a good birder as well. She's out there to help people understand what they're seeing, and they just let Calvin do their own thing. Jeff Dykehouse on our board tags monarchs. And we're going to put some of these MODIS tags on him. I'll talk about that in a minute. He has tagged monarchs in St. Ignace that have turned up in Mexico. Talk about a miracle. And if any of you know the whole monarch story, sort of the promised land for monarch butterflies, most of them is either Southern California. For the ones from here is in Mexico. It takes about 4 generations. So the bird will fly a couple hundred miles, lay eggs, or the butterfly will fly a couple hundred miles, lay eggs, die, eggs hatch, go through the whole process, fly another. Takes 4 or 5 generations to get here. And one flies all the way back to Mexico. And how they know? And it's not like anywhere in Mexico will do, right? It's a pretty specific place that they're going to. It's a miracle. That's all I can say. It's a miracle. All right, so for example, these aren't super current counts, but these are, this is kind of what stuff can look like. Broad wings, Pat mentioned, you can get a lot of broad wings come through here. We've had 15,000 broad wings come through here in 2 days. It's amazing. But these are the kinds of trends that we're looking at. And, this is the kind of data that people begin to pick up and start to ask questions about. Why are these are trending pretty, some pretty serious declines here. Mackinaw Island, what we realized at one point 5 years ago is we were missing birds in these counts because they're island hopping. They weren't coming straight up through the straits. They're jumping along island hopping. And so some of you may know Gracie if you've ever been to Fort Holmes on Mackinaw Island. She is the de facto mayor of Mackinaw Island now. She's on, people come and do TikTok videos of Gracie counting hogs. It's beyond my understanding.
You guys use Round Island as well too, or no?
No, just Mackinaw.
And Pablo?
They're coming from Boblo, I think some of them, as they're flying over Mackinaw. So I think we catch a lot of those here. But, the same kinds of things, red tails, kestrels, merlins, peregrines, golden eagles, ospreys, bald eagles. Waterbird counts. There's a lot of waterbirds in the straits. There's a lot of waterbirds using the straits. Fall of 2023, they counted almost 140,000 birds. 195 different species. This is an incredibly diverse aquatic system. And, this is just sort of, it's not super helpful, but, there's 8 species here and 187 species in the other here. But you ever see, some of you, I'm sure, have seen the big redhead rafts. People will call and say, oh my God, there's an oil spill under the bridge. And it's red-headed ducks out here. Kind of fun. Owl banding. This is a little kestrel. This picture was taken 2 falls ago when we're having all the northern light. She caught this little owl. This owl had just been banded, been set in the tree to be released. Northern lights were going off in the background. She took a once in a lifetime picture with an iPhone.
That's so cute. So
Unbelievable. But owl banders live out here. This is where they live. So if any of you feel like your housing isn't very good, well, 2 people living in there for 8 weeks, and they get to know each other very well. The silver and Point LaBarbe. And we catch kind of a nice variety of owls. This is the saw-whet, the northern saw-whet. This makes up most of the owls we catch in band. And it's a long ear, and you can see why. Believe it or not, he's not a lot bigger than the saw-whet. There's a barred owl. They will actually prey on saw-whets. They'll eat saw-whet owls. So when there's bards in the neighborhood, they're checking the nets pretty regularly because the bards will come into the nets and eat these guys are the cutest. I mean, this is God's cute owl thing right here. But the banding of these owls gives us a sense of their migration. So there's there's several ways of trying to understand the natural history of these birds. Banding is one of them, but it's not always the best way, or it's not we have better technology now, and I'm going to get into some of that, how we're doing it. This is, if you want to come out in the fall, you call me. You can, these are open to the public. Our owl banding sites are open to the public. They aren't just come one, come all. We can only handle 10 or 12 people a night comfortably around the campfire. But if you and your it's a very kid-friendly thing too. Grandchildren or whatever want to come out and learn something about owls and their natural history, this is a great opportunity. And they show them how to age them. So the porphyrin is a little pigment in the feathers, and it's in new feathers. Over time, it wears out in the older feathers and goes away, and that's how they age them. They can look at the porphyrin under a blue light and look at the number. And so if you get a bird that this whole thing is pink, that bird just hatched that year. It's a hatch year bird. This bird's probably 2 years old. It's got a lot, and it tends to break down that way. Owl fun facts, their ears are offset. They're not level, and it helps them tune in. This facial disc directs sound to the ears. So this round sort of feathering here will direct sound to their ears. Their eyes are set up so they have really good depth perception. Remember, these guys are flying through the woods, so they need to see when that branch is about to whack them in the face. They have their flight feathers on their wings are serrated. They have little serrations in them, and it makes them super quiet. So prey never hear them coming. And then they have 2 toes in the front and 2 in the back, and they have little feathers on their feet. Very cool little birds. So one of the other things we do is study migration. I mean, these birds that are passing through here are migrating. And when it comes to the conservation of birds that migrate, you need to understand 3 things. Where do they breed? Where do they overwinter? And how do they get between those 2 places? Because that's what you have to think about in terms of conservation. You can protect their breeding sites all you want, but if where they overwinter is gone, they're going to go, and vice versa. And if they don't have places to stop, especially some of these birds that fly a long distance, along the way, if you don't understand what that looks like, where they're going to and from, you can't develop a thoughtful or comprehensive conservation plan. So here, let me go back. This is a little solar powered GPS transmitter. And there's a backpack under these feathers. It's fitted on these birds. And it's a little Teflon backpack that holds it on there. Anytime this bird gets within, I think it's like 10 miles of a cell tower, it downloads all of its data. So it stores it even when it's not near a cell tower, but it downloads it when it gets to a cell tower. And that's how he uses that then to map their routes. And I'll show you some of those. But this is kind of what I was telling you just now. If you don't really understand, broadwings migrate all the way to Argentina. So the broadwing hawks that you see flying over in massive numbers over Mackinaw City in the fall are going all the way to Argentina. That's where they overwinter. It's an amazing ecological process. It's not unlike monarch butterflies going to Mexico. So these are very specific birds. And he takes pictures of them, and the color morphology is part of another study they were doing. Some are darker, some are lighter. What's the genetics? Are they separate populations? All that. But he tagged that bird here. This is where it ended up breeding. When it came back, it came around Superior and decided to spend the winter in Kentucky. Now, one really interesting thing, we had 5 of these birds. Well, here, this is another one. This one's up here. What we learned, this bird, you're getting pretty far north. You're at the very edge of the boreal up here. Nobody had any idea that these birds were going that far north to nest and to breed. And he goes up and comes back same way. And it's not random. It's not random. So here's a whole bunch of different birds. They're all coming up but what's really interesting, 5 of them ended up within 100 miles of each other in Kentucky. I don't know what's down there. I have no idea. There's land between the lake. I don't know what's going on here, but a whole bunch of these birds, and see some of them don't get much further than, Ann Arbor south, but we've had some all the way down in Alabama too. But 5 of them ended up all clustered together right here. But you can see these are the routes they take. Some go around through the Detroit count. Some come up this way. This guy way north. But it's not random. They use the same, and you can see it generally, they use the same pathways every time. So they're putting these transmitters on some juveniles now to see if they're the same. These were all adults. These are $2,000 transmitters. So you're pretty specific about the bird you put them on, because they cost a lot. But and Nick also wanted to know, where are they breeding? Where are they stopping? So we're going to try some juveniles. The hypothesis is they just wander around more till they find out where they need to be. And then they kind of figure it out. So we got clarity around the migratory routes and breeding grounds. They're nesting in very, I think most people assume they were nesting in here. Nobody thought they were going this far. Straits area, it is not random. They use it spring and fall. And those 5 are down in Kentucky. Nobody knows why. These are the little tags that Jeff uses. This next year, we're going to have a little tag that has a little tiny microscopic battery on it that people can track on their phones, these blue morph tags, or it can be picked up with a MODIS tower. Monarchs are on the decline, as you all know. Last year was much better than the year before. The year before just was really awful, and we think it was all those fires out west. Yeah. And yeah, there's so much we can do out there. We'll talk about them. Yeah,
We'll talk.
There's a ton of stuff to talk about. So the outreach and education is, I call it the weakest link of the Raptor Watch's programming right now. The science is pretty strong. We have, Raptor Naturalist comes out to the site. There's Ed. When they're trapping hawks back at Darrow's, and there are folks at the watch site, they will bring the hawks up, and Ed will or who's that, Steve Baker or somebody will do, or Calvin, even Sarah will do a little kind of show and tell with some of these birds. We're working with Little Traverse Conservancy on a few programs, and we have the Kathy Bricker Scholarship Fund that is used to send kids to the Michigan Audubon Bird Camp. So we sponsored a bunch of those lately. New projects. Kestrel nest box monitoring, I'll get into that. The MODIS towers, you probably have heard something about that in this map station that the Greenwood Foundation we're getting ready to put together. American kestrels, like most birds, are on the decline. And we're not really sure why. Once again, likely habitat, maybe some climate change. It's hard to know. But speaking to the folks at Little Traverse, we realized yeah. We realized they had 78 or 80 kestrel. They own a lot of preserves, as you all know. They've done a really nice job of protecting habitat and land. There's 78 kestrel nesting boxes on their property scattered throughout the region. Nobody's even looking at it. They got a grant years ago to put them all up, and then the person running the grant left, and then that was the end of that. So there's all these kestrel boxes out there, and nobody's monitoring. Nobody knows whether they're getting used. Nobody is doing this work, trying to figure out what's going on with them, banding them, doing that, collecting the data, so on and so forth. The Raptor Watch, that happens to be my wife there. The Raptor Watch has licensed banders. This is what we do. We collect this kind of data. So now we have a partnership with Little Traverse. They're protecting and managing the habitat. We're doing all the data collection. It's perfect. Partnership made in heaven. MODIS. So I've said a couple times, there are ways of trying to understand where things are going, trying to understand their migrations. When you band a bird, it has to get recaught in order for you to get any good information from it. So another banding station somewhere else has to misnet that bird. Then all this data goes into a big database that U.S. Geological Survey maintains. So when we put a band on a bird, that data goes in, this day, this bird, this band number, bird was healthy, it was a male, it was 2 years old, kind of thing, goes into the database. But that's only useful if the bird gets caught again somewhere else on its migration. And there are banding stations all over. So they do get caught, but it's not, like 80% of them. It's relatively low, 10, 20% get recaught again some other place. But it's helpful when they do. And then you can kind of begin to piece together, okay, they were up in Mackinaw on this day. They're down in South Carolina on this day. Now they've turned up, in Florida on this day. Cheap though, doesn't cost any money to do. You're paying the banders. The technology and the equipment is very inexpensive. Then you have those things that Nick uses, and they make those in all different sizes, but they're $2,000. So Nick can actually follow them in real time almost. If they're in any kind of urban area, he can log on and he can see where they are, and he can map specifically their migratory routes. But those are very expensive transmitters. That's not cheap. So MODIS is a new system that's come into being. It was developed up in Canada. Now these are all over the world. And these are little radio telemetry tags. These are little battery-powered tags, and they come in all shapes and sizes. You can put them on a monarch, you can put them on a bat, you can put them on a dragonfly, you can put them on a hawk. They're all different sizes. And whenever they fly by a MODIS tower, it pings, and that data is downloaded into the database. So as they're migrating, as something is migrating, if it's moving through an area that has MODIS towers, every time it flies within 15 miles of a MODIS tower, ping, it goes into, and you can almost track these things in real time. It's not quite like Nick's stuff, but it's a heck of a lot better than just a band. And these things are not $2,000 a piece. They're like $80 or $90 a piece. So they're not, a band that you put on a regular old band is like 2 cents. What was interesting though, and that's what they look, this is what the tower looks like. They're like big radio or old TV.
Yeah, that's it.
And yeah, and we mount them on basically old CB poles and stuff. What we realized though is there aren't any in the Straits. We know that the Straits are a huge migratory route for hawks because you can't help but see them. But a lot of these things a lot of birds are just, they're migrating at night. There's bats out there migrating. There's owls out there migrating. We don't know what else is moving through the Straits. And nobody is looking because there's no way to tell. There were no towers. So during the last 2 years, we built 6 towers. This is Douglas Lake. This is U of M's biological station, Wilderness State Park. This is the offices in the city of Sheboygan, the DNR office.
That's not Wilderness, that may be Cross Village.
Yeah.
Oh, it says Cross Village right here, but it's at Wilderness.
Then it's up higher.
Yeah, well, I have to move the dot later. But that's actually where it is at Wilderness State Park. This is the DNR office in Sheboygan. This is, there's one at the airport on Mackinaw Island. There's one at the Forest Service office, and there's one out here on Beaver Island now. So anything, and there's also one down here at the Greenwood Foundation. There's actually 7 before it was all done. So anything with a MODIS tag moving through the Straits, even if it's island hopping, will get picked up as it moves through here. So this, we're hoping, will serve as, kind of scientific infrastructure, if you will. This is to attract researchers, attract universities, attract other people to the area and do additional bird research up here. So then the next project we're putting together with the Greenwood Foundation down around Wolverine, a MAPS station. And the MAPS is, what is the M? It's avian productivity and survival. Monitoring, how hard is that? Monitoring avian productivity and survival. And, this is no different than the kestrels, right? Most songbirds are in serious decline. And we don't really know why. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are reasons that aren't. Most of it has to do with habitat loss. And then there's, climate change kinds of things, food web disruption, you spray enough herbicide and insecticide on, on the landscape, things start getting weird. But these MAP stations are long-term monitoring stations intended to begin to really get at some of these questions. What's going on? Why is this happening? But in order to do that, you have to have multiple years. You've got to have a commitment over time to sort of studying these birds. And so we're putting together this MAP station. The Greenwood Foundation is helping with it, and Michigan Audubon will probably be engaged on the educational side with us out there as well. So it's another really good partnership, right? We can do all the banding and netting. Greenwood can do all the paying for it. And Michigan Audubon can bring their educational programs to the table. So yeah, this is what we're trying to do. Measure nesting success, survival rates, try to identify some of these environmental threats, informing conservation decisions. It's a difficult world at the moment for anything conservation related, but it won't be that way forever. And we need to develop comprehensive conservation plans for these kinds of things. And the trick with birds is they move. And a lot of them migrate. It makes it a lot harder. Okay, that's it. That's a lot of stuff shoved at you in a short period of time. That's actually faster than I thought it would. I talked pretty fast. Any questions? Angie?
Yes, so we're in partnership with you. We hope to be. We also, Sandy brought us a kiosk that we have dedicated to bird education. And Tanya Proctor and Patrick and Sandy are all working together along with Mary Ann, I understand, got pulled into that. To make this kiosk a welcoming birdhouse, so to speak, of information.
Okay.
So we're hoping to do that. So we'll probably have a signage dedicated to your efforts.
Where's that?
Right next to the nature center that we have. Yes, it's right there.
Yeah, well, we already have the raptors displayed in the nature center.
We do have
And they're
that.
going to fly next door.
Oh, they're going to migrate.
They're gonna migrate right across the streets.
One of the, Angie, I'll just spill it. One of the things that I want to do, well, I still can, and it can be anywhere up here, but I think May Woods is as good a place as any, is to develop a migration-focused nature center that has birds, fish, and butterflies. Those are your focal. So you can think about birds, migrating, fish, Great Lakes, salmon I know are introduced and all, but still conceptually sort of works. And then you have the butterflies, and you have that way station, and you have all that ground where you can put nectar producing plants. And I just think it would be a really interesting way to get people out of the fudge shops and on that coast to coast trail and bring them into there.
The pit trail, absolutely.
Yeah,
Having people to it because of migration history here.
that's actually a really interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that.
So we work together.
Yeah. We just added another $30,000 wing to the thing. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Are you going to be staying with the Raptor Watch?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I came on, so I was on their board, and I come from, my whole professional career has been working in nonprofit conservation. And the Raptor Watch just needed a little help, and I think turning the corner from a group of very passionate hawk watchers and birders into something that is more sustainable in terms of a long-term conservation organization. And so, I said, I will help you get around this corner. And I think we're there. I mean, we have a little bit of an endowment. We have a really good new person, lots of energy. Doesn't look at his phone and go, I don't want to talk to that person. He'll answer, but I'm going to stay. Yeah. It's a fun community. The bird community, like you said, people are very welcoming. They like to share what they know. And, it's a little, my wife is gone, she's into the second phase of her addiction. She got a spotting scope for her birthday. So, yeah, I know how this works.
I've been going to Cecil Bay And there's greater yellowlegs
Oh,
that have been hanging around there for a little while. And
okay.
they nest around Hudson Bay. And so it's amazing to see something that is going to be here for a short time and then gone.
Then gone, yeah. It's a real, it gets people outdoors, it connects them to the natural world. It also teaches them about not only just the bird, but if you think about it, you begin to connect the bird to its habitat. And, you know, it becomes more of a multi-dimensional learning experience for people. It's a great thing. I refer to myself as bird adjacent. So I keep the data. So, and I'll tell you, one of the worst fights we've had, my wife and I, in the last 3 or 4 years. When I go out, I'm looking at, isn't that an interesting wetland? Where does the wetland end and the uplands begin? I'm more of an ecosystem kind of person, and she's trying to tell me, well, if you count the third feather over on that woodpecker, and it's a quarter of an inch longer than that one, and it's like, I don't think so, dear. Anyways, I like to get out and hike. She does too. And one day I thought we were on a hike. We were 40 minutes into this hike and I could still see the car. And I said, this isn't working. Where did we? So now we have to designate, is it a bird watching thing or are we going on a hike? That's my near divorce story. And
I'm glad you're filming some of you around.
thank you all for having me. Thank you all for caring about the environment, caring about the natural world.
Come join and have a cookie. I know it's not bird food, but
It's,
it's
yeah. I'm happy to.
With bird seed.
Any questions at all online?
Nope, just a thank you from Steve and Paula. They said
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
I know
Yep.
them well.
There you go.
They're from Indianapolis.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. We're good to go. Thank you so much all for being here. Well, put together the stuff.
All right.
I did